Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our next video in the viewer question and answer series. As we get close to the final video, I can't wait to see who's going to be the last one of our states. But today we're here with Zane, and he is out in Idaho. So you're working IT, you've been working from home, as I think a lot of people are feeling the same thing, that they've kind of been moved their transition to homework to working from home. And you get the visitors when you work at home.
Yes.
Well, what's your first question for me today?
All right. So this is a question that's near and dear to my heart, involving amputees,
Okay.
actually. Being a below-the-knee amputee here,
Yeah.
I guess the first part is, have you ever dealt with, one thing that I've heard is some people have a belief that the whole body has to be together. And sometimes, I don't know whether, I've heard maybe they will store the limb at a funeral home for them or cremate it so they'll have the remains. Have you ever had to deal with something like that?
I myself have not, but I remember years ago when I was in mortuary school, I visited a funeral home and we were in the room of all the cremated remains that had never been picked up. And they said, oh, this is somebody's, I can't remember if it was an arm or a leg. And I was like, you know, I'd never thought about, it's just things you don't think about until you encounter them. And so I can't imagine, there's no way I don't, unless we think like pickling, you know, where you put like the organs in like a jar of, you know, solution and put them on a shelf and hold them. I can't imagine doing that for a whole limb. So I would think that the recommendation would be to cremate and then, you know, hold it, or the family hold it until burial or cremation later. But so I myself have not done that. Typically the limbs are just, or, you know, whatever is amputated has already been amputated or was never there, you know, if someone was born without something. But I have not. Where were you an amputee or born like that, or do you have a leg
Amputee.
jar somewhere? Or
Oh no, I had a bunch of foot surgeries when I was young, and I had an infection, I guess about 3 or 4 years ago, that just went crazy and got through one of the fusions I had in my foot. So they said, even if we are able to get this infection healed, you'll never walk on that foot again.
Oh.
So that's what we did.
So you're
and it's worked out well.
Newer amputee. So this is a newer
Yeah.
for you.
Just a few years, and actually just last year, I on my other foot, I actually lost my little toe to an infection. So,
Wow.
but I'm hoping we get everything straightened out so that they're not slowly whittling away parts of me.
Yeah. So what did you do with your leg when they amputated it?
I don't know. I actually asked the doctor when he came in. I said, "So what happens to this leg?" He goes, "Why? Do you want it back?" And I said, "No, not really." And he said, "Well, we'll send it down to pathology, and they, I guess, dissect it and go through to look at the infection. And I don't know if it goes in a medical incinerator or the landfill or what, but it's out there somewhere."
Typically it goes to the incinerator, which is actually what hospitals used to do with fetal demises even, you know, when people went in for miscarriages and such, that's where a lot of times they would go. At some hospitals, I'm sure they still do, but all the medical waste essentially is what everything is deemed. That's where they all go. So, which is sad, but well, that's a bummer. Your leg's gone, but I can see that it goes both ways, because what are you going to do? Like, okay, are they going to send you home with the leg, or do you call a funeral home and say, my leg's down in the morgue, can you go get it? You know, and do people want to pay for that cost? I can see there's a lot of different variables. That's why we probably don't encounter it very often, because I think with all sorts of issues, diabetics and things, there are amputations quite often.
Right.
Different variables.
And kind of the second part of that, have you ever taken care of someone who was an amputee? And if they were they buried with their prosthetic?
You know, kind of about half and half. Some are, And some people are like, well, they don't need it now, so why are we going to bury them? And they'll donate it, even though they are very specialty, they're created special for you. And it's funny because I actually had this conversation with a family recently that they said, well, I have their prosthetic, like, what do I do with it now? And the gentleman that in question was cremated, so we weren't going to cremate it with him. And she said, well, I don't even know what to do because I could donate it, but where do I even, where do I even donate it that it could maybe be of help? But so she was going to look into that. But some people will just bury it with them or put it on them and have it under their pant leg or, under their sleeve or whatever it may be. So it's kind of up to the family what they want to do. But I would say about half and half. But a lot of people, I think I've probably tucked more pant legs and arm sleeves than I have buried prosthetics, I would say. Because I'll tuck them and pin it just as if they probably did, when they wore it. You pin it up and, tailor it nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess you could use it as a very specialized urn if you were cremated.
Oh, that would be interesting. All I picture, and that's totally bad, is the leg on the Christmas movie with the lamp.
Oh, A Christmas Story, right.
Like that's literally the first thing that popped in my mind because I don't even know. We're filming at night right now, and I'm a little silly in the evening, I think. So what's your third question?
All right. So I don't know. There's a case here in Idaho. It's kind of called, I think they call it the cult mom case, about these kids that were missing for a while, and the mother wasn't saying where they were. And Lavori Vallow case. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all. But they ended up finding the children buried in her husband's yard. And
Yes.
So the trial's going on now. So kind of what I'm asking is, those remains, I'm guessing, are still with the authorities because it's an ongoing investigation or crime case. But when people get remains like that back that are so like skeletal, how are those put in a casket? Are they put like in some kind of a silk bag, or are they just arranged, or how does that work?
It's going to be dependent on essentially what the family wants to do. I would guess, I know exactly the case because the kids are older. It's not like they were little kids. I mean, they were like 10, 12-ish, or, I mean, they were substantial age. They weren't just little kids, but, and yeah, she for the longest time was not sane, and she's a blonde lady. Anyway, and I don't remember how long they were buried. It wasn't months and months, was it? It was maybe like 1 or 2 months.
Maybe a little bit longer. I know one of them was charred, like they had tried to burn them, and the other one was wrapped up in a bag. I think it's very morbid, but it seems like it was for I don't know, not quite a year, but less than a year, I think.
I'll have to look that case up. Maybe Brian and Ryan and I'll, because we're doing a new series where we discuss crime victims and how we would care for them. That would be an excellent one for us to discuss. I would imagine, I mean, depending on the length of time, they were not completely skeletonized, especially if the one was wrapped up in something. There may be more tissue there, but they may have cleaned the bones when they got them to, and when they went to inspect them, and they may have released them at this time if they've already done their analysis and everything. They may have already released them to the other family to bury them. Some families in that sense choose cremation and just cremate what's left, or if they're going to bury them, they may leave them in the body bag that they come in or the box that they come in. I have had family that has gone in and laid the skeleton out themselves just to kind of connect with that person one last time. It was kind of their way of doing it. I mean, the person in that sense, that case had been dead for a very long time, and they had finally found her. And so I think it was just the mother's way of kind of connecting with her daughter in some way. But in moving that casket, you then have these bones that are kind of just moving around freely. And I would worry about moving that casket and having things bouncing or, kind of hitting the edge and making some sort of noise and people hearing it that might be in attendance. I would worry about that. So I would think some kind of containment. I think I like that idea of maybe laying down a nice blanket or something and laying them out and wrapping them and containing them or something in that. It's not a common thing that we run into that. Even at high volume, at all the places I cover, it's not often that I've ever seen that. It's usually going to be a criminal case or something where the individual was found after a long duration of time, or some insane catastrophe, or they've been put in acid, some crazy thing where it is going to have happened. So it thankfully doesn't happen very often, but you can go one way or another, cremation or burial. But if you do the burial, sometimes they'll be in a box, sometimes in a small body bag, like an infant body bag, which are so much smaller that you could just put them all in, because you don't need a full body bag because they're all going to just pile together in the middle of the bones. I feel like for those kids, the best thing to do would have been to put them both in one casket and bury them together. Would have been nice. Yeah. I didn't realize that was in Idaho. I've heard that story in kind of snippets, because they'd say, oh, she didn't say anything, or oh, she came up with this story, or oh, this happened, and then all of a sudden they found the kids. But it was one of those, well, it's not near me, and I'm not listening close enough to the context to know where it was. So
there are lots of weird twists and turns in that case you're going to find if you look it up.
It is. It's kind of crazy. So I think that would be a good one to put on my list for discussing some crime with the guys. So that is a good one. Do you have any bonus questions at all, or?
Yeah, I've got more of a lighthearted one, if we could, real quick. So have you ever taken someone in for your care, a man maybe with a beard that is very well groomed? Hey, that guy has a beard that he's had for a while. But when they go to care, his spouse or whatever says, shave that thing off. I don't like it. Because I'm almost 100% sure my wife's going to do that because she doesn't like my beard.
I have never had anybody, usually it's however the person kind of wore along the way. I'm trying to think back. We did have someone recently, and they did have us clean shave him, and he had a beard for a really long time. And I can't remember why they had us do it. It wasn't like spiteful or anything, but they did have us do that, actually. Now that you're bringing it up, I'm remembering one family. And usually, because it's interesting, if somebody's in the hospital, if somebody's in hospice long-term, they can get quite a beard going, quite a bit of facial hair that grows in pretty quickly, because it's very uncomfortable to shave somebody that's, in pain, and you're very sensitive and your nerves are heightened. And so that's kind of the last thing. And we have the conversation often, like, is this growth? Is this normal? Like, what's going on there? And sometimes they maybe had just a mustache or just a goatee or whatever it may be. So it's good to always ask, because you never know. Because like you said, sometimes they flip and they may go off the other side and say, oh yeah, let's just shave them all up. Not too often. It's always good for us to know before embalming, because after you get a lot of dry of the tissue, if you have to do it afterwards. So it's really preferential for us to be able to do it before the embalming as opposed to afterwards. So a lot of drying issues when it comes to having to take off a full beard and stuff. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good. Your wife's going to shave you up. I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you for the questions. They were good.
Oh, well, thank you.
They were all unique and ones I have not answered yet. So that's good.
All right. Great. Thank you, Kari.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us in Idaho today with Zane, and check us out next Sunday and see what state we visit next. Bye, guys.